Welcome back to Fixing Furniture. Today my project is working on a set of 6 chairs that all need to be repaired. Now this chair design is unique and it's also got a fault to it. So the rails are curved and the joinery in here is susceptible to breaking, and that's what's happened here. This chair is severely broken. The only way to deal with this on an upholstered chair, of course, is to take the upholstery off. So I'm going to show you how I deal with these challenges. Not only that, there are 3 different styles of upholstery on these chairs. They look similar. This one has a foam seat on it. This one has a spring seat with webbing. And this one has a plywood seat that has very little padding on it and feels like you're sitting on plywood. So I'm going to quote these for the customer in terms of the options of how to put these back together again, because they might want them put together with traditional springs. Stick with me, I'll show you how it's done.
As a furniture repair business, we're opening the doors to our workshop to show you the tools and techniques to repair furniture.
The front rail here, you can see this has been broken off.
We give you tips to make your repair projects easier. Let's get into the workshop and start fixing furniture.
Sponsored by Kennedy Hardware, offering restoration hardware for antique furniture. When I look at these chairs closely, the tacks on the back are all exactly the same. But if I look at these 2 chairs, for example, you can see that the tacks here are almost like a hand-hammered look to them, versus these are smooth. So these smooth ones are what's on the back of each of these chairs. So it tells me that there's been some work done here. This is the one that feels very hard to sit on. Now, the one on the left here also has those same tacks. So I'm suspecting this is the original seat. This is the one that has springs in it. So I'm going to start by taking that apart and investigating what's underneath it. I'll start by rolling out some padding, and we'll take the dust cover off underneath. The dust cover here is modern fabric. Sometimes this is called cambray. And all I need to do is get my tack lifter under these tacks here and pull them out. Now there are a number of different tack lifters on the market. I've chosen this one here because it seems to work the best. I previously broke one that I was using, and this is just much sharper and much harder to be able to get in some of these tough spots. So I really like this one. I'll leave a link in the video description if you'd like to get one of those. Well, there's the first surprise. I didn't expect to see anything underneath here. This is a synthetic leather, and you can see there's webbing underneath there. And if I feel this, it feels like we've got a large spring here, another one here. So there's probably 4 springs under here. I'll take this off and we should have some webbing. So it looks like someone's put some new webbing on here to try and reinforce this. You can see here how the webbing deteriorates over time. So just pull on this, it's really given way. So it needs to be re-webbed, and you can see here there are some springs underneath. So now I'm going to flip it over and we'll take the top cover off. To remove the finishing cover, I want to make sure I protect it and the wood. So I've got a piece of cork here. I'm going to start at the back corner here, and the cork is just adding some protection to the fabric and the wood as I pull out the tacks. So by starting at the corner here, I can now start to work my way across, pulling up each tack one at a time. So here's another surprise. Look at that, green fabric underneath here. I'm not sure that that's leather. It feels a bit like plastic. You can tell leather by looking at the back. It feels like suede. This piece that I took off here, this is synthetic. It's got a fabric backing on it. So it might look like leather, but it isn't. I'll continue to take the chair apart and see what's underneath. Before I forget, I want to label this so that I know what chair this goes back on, because I anticipate each of these pieces of leather are going to be slightly different. Got all the tacks out here, so I'll peel this back now. Yeah, that's just man-made material, not leather at all. So we've got some padding here, and underneath the padding, we've got the muslin. Looks like it's pretty worn out in the center there. I'll take out the tacks here to take off the muslin material. So the padding here is some sort of animal hair. It's not horsehair. I don't recognize it. And then we've got straw underneath. So I'll set that aside. And then here we've got a very thick edge roller around the front to provide some padding. And then here you can see we've got burlap that's really worn through the front. And if I open this up, there are the springs. So you can see this is starting to get dusty. So I'm going to put my respirator on and strip the rest of this off. Okay, let's take this burlap off here. Take a look at the springs. So the springs are tied in place so that they don't move around. You can see this string broke here. I took that one off the nail there. This string is broken. So what I want to do is take a photo of this so I can tell from that photo how I can rebuild it once I need to put this back together again. This might not be the route that we go. There might be a sheet of plywood put on here with a couple holes and then build up the padding from there. But I'll quote this for the customer and we'll see where they want to go. If we look underneath, there's a piece of plywood here and it doesn't extend the full width of the chair. This is actually foam padding right here. Down here I can see some Robertson screws, so this is modern technology. And someone decided to put a whole bunch of finishing nails into this joint. It's not the way we repair furniture. Over here I also noticed that there's a nail right in the side of the upholstery where everyone can see it. So I've got to gently take this apart so I can repair it and get it back together again. I priced out two options for the customers, either to go with a plywood seat or with springs, and they've decided to go with springs for the chairs. So what I'm going to do is take this chair apart, leave this one together. If there is something severely wrong here and I need to cut something off, I've got a template here I can use, so one at a time is the best approach for this. I'll get this turned over on the bench and start taking it apart. I'll start by taking off the corner blocks, and as I look at them here, I can see that they've been labeled previously to be repaired, and I'm not sure what type of adhesive they used on these, so hopefully they come apart, because these ideally will come apart at the front here to release these ones back here, because they are on a bit of an angle. So this joint here is where the issue is. If I move this back and forth, you can see how much it moves. There's a brad nail here, here, here. There's another one here. There's a bunch in this support block here. Really, nails don't hold furniture together. joints do. So I need to take all this apart very carefully. The brad nails are made out of soft metal, and I find using fencing pliers the easiest way to do this because it's got this curve here I can use as leverage. So clamp on, not too tight, and then slowly lever it out to get the nail out. So that's really just a piece of wire. Sometimes the top breaks off and you end up with a wire left in there. That makes for a more difficult project to disassemble. This corner block is loose here, but this side doesn't seem to let go. It might have been put on with epoxy. There are 3 brad nails that are going into the leg here, and in order for me to pull this apart, I need to get those brad nails out. So I'm going to put a hacksaw blade in here, cut those off, and hopefully this will start to come apart. Okay, I've cut through here. Now on this side I need to get this loose, but look at the brad nails in here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this one hanging out here, 8 that I can see. So, more work to do here. I'll see if these corner blocks want to come out. No, they're firmly in there, and I could see adhesive in the edge there. So what I'm going to do is see if I can pull this apart with these joints still together. It should give me a bit of leeway, but I'll have to put clamps on it to find out. So these joints are coming apart on an angle, which means I need to push out this way and that way at the same time to flare out the joint. So I'll get these clamps in here and we'll see how it comes apart. These joints aren't coming apart, but I now realize why. Because on the inside here, you can see we've got nails. So now I have to extract these nails so I can pull the joint apart. This tool is called a cat's paw. It's designed to get under the nail head and pull it up. This end here has more leverage on it. So put it in here and tap it out. Okay, so with those nails out, let's try this again. I'm going to use a mallet just to see if I can start to jar this apart. With some gentle tapping, this side is starting to come loose. But you can see there's a nail here, there's one inside there, there's another in the front here. The other side is snug, so I'll take this part apart first and then see what we can do about this side not letting go. Here's a lesson on how not to repair furniture. There's a nail here, 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 and here. And all this does is it holds the joint together, but allows it to continue to wear. This really needed to be pulled apart, and this needed to be re-glued. But because it's an upholstered piece, it's a fair bit of work to do that. That's likely why they took a shortcut. There's a bit of a crack here. I'll have to re-glue that part. But I'll put this joint back together again, and then I'll pull the other one apart. This joint's really stubborn, but you see it's got movement to it. So it seems to be stuck on that one dowel. I'm hoping it's not a nail. But I'm going to put some vinegar in here, see if I can loosen up the glue that might be in there. Hopefully somebody didn't put this together with epoxy, because that won't come apart. So yes, that was high glue. And you can tell high glue because when it gets wet with vinegar, it gets sticky. So that's a good thing. High glue is the only thing you should use when you glue something together, so it can be reversed like this. I've got one more nail to cut out there, and then we can check how stable these joints are. On both joints, there's one section that has split out here, and that's what's allowing movement in the chair. So I'm going to glue this piece back into place with PVA glue for a permanent bond, and that will be as strong as the wood fibers there as long as I clamp it. So I'll apply PVA on this when I glue it up, clamp it this way to put clamping pressure on it. I'll put a high glue on the dowels so this can be disassembled in the future, and that will lock up these joints, get them nice and tight. It's now critical that I let this glue cure to come to full strength, and that's 24 hours for the PVA glue and the hide glue. So I'll set this aside. In the meantime, I'm going to work on the next chair, and I've got some upholstery parts to order. One of the most visible parts are the tacks that didn't match. So I'll be ordering my tacks from Kennedy Hardware, our sponsor, and that way they're going to match on the back of the chair and the front. I'll leave a link in the video description, both to Kennedy Hardware and the tacks that I'm using. On the second chair, I've had to do some extensive repair here. I've got a new piece of walnut. I've carved it to match here, reset the back here so that this is ready for the upholstery, and I've just finished drilling the holes. So I'm ready for the glue up here. I've got a nice snug fit that's going to work well. If you want to see photos of how I go about doing something like this, you can join our Fixing Furniture community. It's a membership program. There's a number of benefits in there. We share tips on furniture repair and restoration, as well as answering questions people have. You can learn more at fixingfurniture.com. I rarely use strap clamps, but on a chair like this, it's the right application to make sure you're pulling those joints snug. The trick is just to make sure you move the back to get it aligned right before tightening it. But listen to the tension in this. Now that's tight. I'll get all the supplies in the shop, and what we'll do is start upholstering. So I've got all my supplies now. I've got the new set of springs. I've got the webbing that I need. I've got the tacks that I got from Kennedy Hardware. They're matching these very well. So we're all set to start putting the upholstery back on here. So the first step is I need to put the corner blocks back in here. I need to clean them off and glue them in. Once I've done that, I can flip it over and start attaching the webbing. This gloss that's on here is PVA glue, so that all needs to come off. I need it back to bare wood so that the glue will stick. I'll clean that off in the spindle sander, and I can glue and screw these in place. These corner blocks were originally put in with nails, but someone subsequently added a screw, and that didn't really work. You can see it pulled out here. So I need to make sure I put in 2 screws, one on either side, make sure it's deep enough for that screw to grip, and that way when this is glued and screwed together, it'll be nice and firm. Now when you're screwing through blocks like this, it's important that you've got a clearance hole, that screw can pass through there without binding. That way when it tightens, it compresses it. But if I've got this that I have to screw through this block, you could end up creating a gap. So it's just a matter of using the right size drill bit, drilling it out, and that screw can pass through there freely. This also lets me see how much of the screw is protruding and how much of a grip I'm going to get. You can see there's not much there. I want 3/4 of an inch to grab that wood. This is an example here is if the screw is too short, it will just pull out of the surface. So now I'll turn it upside down. And what we'll do is put the jute webbing on. So it gets stapled on and then doubled over to help reinforce it. So I'm going to start right here in the center. I've got 5/8 inch staples here, so they're a generous length. And what I'm doing is putting a row of staples on the back section of this. and then take the front half, roll it down, and staple it a second time. Now we'll stretch it across this side and pull it tight. So when putting on webbing, you need a webbing stretcher. There's a couple different styles out there. This is one. There's another one that will actually grip it a little bit closer to the chair. So this just works through the material. You put it against the chair here and then lever it. And as I push it down further and further, it stretches it out more and more. I just need to center this, and then I'll put a row of staples on that inside, and then I can double it over. Now I need to put the webbing across this way, and it goes through in an interwoven pattern, and that way the webbing supports itself. So there's a detail here. I'm going to put the webbing on at this point, and then I'll put one more back here. The second one here will get woven the opposite direction as the first one. Center it in the opening here, and then staple it on. Okay, and now we can stand it back up, and I want to put my safety end on these because they're very, very sharp. Okay, now we can lay out the springs. So I want to use the same pattern as the original layout. I'll bring that chair up here and we can take a look. So here we've got 4 springs, and what I need to do is evenly space them from the seat rail. I'll measure the distance here and we'll get them lined up. I like using a spacer, and the sandpaper seems to be the right width, so I'll use this for laying out the springs. So I'll position these with my spacer all around the chair. That's looking good there. And then what I'll do is mark them in location so I can stitch them in place. And I want to rotate them as well, but I'll do that after I mark them. So I'm just going to use a marker here and draw around them. The base of the springs have a closure, the top doesn't, but I want these points here on the inside. I don't want them near the outside where they could interfere with the upholstery. So I'll rotate them all to the inside, and this is how I'm going to stitch them together. Each spring will be stitched down with 3 stitchings, so I'll take these ones off and show you with the first one. There are different types of twine you can use for this, and there's a big difference when you go to use them. This one here is a traditional jute. This one here is a 4-ply waxed twine. They're both very strong, but this one here is going to make the work much easier to be able to pull through the jute webbing. It's also much easier to thread a needle. Each spring needs to be secured in 3 spots, and I'll use one long string to go through all of them. So I'll start out here, come over here this way, and I'll work around the bottom of the chair. So I'll start by working from underneath, poking up, getting it to where I need it, and then going down the other side. Got about 10 feet of twine, so I'll just get to the end here and then tie a slip knot. So I'll go around here and then through. And that gives me a slip knot that when I pull that, it tightens up. And then just knot it one more time and we're good to go. So now I'll take my needle, make sure I'm on my mark here. I want to go from the bottom up to the inside of the spring. And then from here, I'll go down this side and tighten it up. Now as I pull this tight, what I want to do is also knot it. So I'm going to put my thread through here, bring it back through the loop I've just created. And now I need to pull all the twine. So I'll pull this tight here, bring this down to the end, and then I can tighten the knot. With the second point attached here, I now just make sure I'm in position. I can put the third one in, and then I'll add the next spring and keep going around the chair and get them all tied down. Before I stand up the chair, I'll just let you look at the tying here. So you can see that pattern goes across there. I've got all the springs attached, so I can now stand this up. So the springs are all attached here, and you can see the ends here are all towards the center. So what we need to do is now tie them down. So they need to be pushed down, and you can see here we've got 3 strings that go across from the side rail here. There's 3 across the front here. Some of them are broken. And what I want to do is measure the height of these. So it's about 1 3/4 inches. What we need to do is compress the springs down to that height. So here you can see they're much higher. We have to bring them down. To tie down the springs, I've got 1/8 inch diamond braided cord. This is polyester, so it's good and strong to hold these springs into place for many years to come. We need some anchor points to start with, so we've got some 10-ounce upholstery tacks. So I'm putting one across here, one across here. I need one for the middle on each, and then we'll do front and back as well. On the back seat rail here, I can put them in on the front, but then the nail's leaning at the wrong angle. So if I come in from the back, it just gives me a way to lean back the nail, but still hammer it. Now, if you haven't seen a tack hammer before, one end is magnetic. It allows you to set the nail, and then the other end will allow you to drive it in. It's important not to drive nails with a magnetic tip because you can break it. Tying these springs down requires knowing some knots. Who knows knots better than Scouts? I'm a Canadian Chief Scout. It's known in the US as an Eagle Scout. So I've gone through a lot of scouting, a lot of knots. The first knot we're going to use is a taut line hitch. I'll show that to you up close. This is how we're going to anchor the cord. So you want to give yourself a generous amount of cord here, and what we're going to do is make a loop, and we're going to wrap it around in here twice. So there's once, and then go below it. There's twice. So that's the start of our knot. Now we're going to wrap it around one more time below this point. So this is the 3rd time, and then this end goes through here. So let me put that through, and then we can pull that tight. So this is giving us a slip knot. You can put that over the nail and tighten it up. Now I normally start at the back here and work my way frontwards and then across, but just for the purpose of showing you this knot, I'm going to tie this on here and you can see how it works. So I can now loop this onto the nail, tighten this up, and that gives me a really strong anchor point. I'll just drive the nail home. So I just need to get twice as much as I need here across. I'll set that there for now and start tying the back. Okay, so now what we need to do is tie the spring down. Now, if I were to tie the spring here, it's going to influence how the seat is formed. What I want to do is tie it down here. But first, I'm just going to cut the cord, so I'm not dealing with a full pile of cord here. And we'll start here with the next knot, and that's a clove hitch. So when I tie this down, what I want to do is compress the spring, and it's naturally going to want to lean this way because I don't have any other tension on it. But that's okay because we're going to correct that as we tie the springs. So I'm going to push it down with the cord pulling it, and I'm going to pinch the cord to the spring. So that gives me the tension point that I'm looking for. So the cord is now underneath, and the knot we're going to use here is a clove hitch. So I think of it as an X. So this is going across. So this is the first part of the X. It's going this direction. And then I need another cross this way. So here you can see that X forming. So I need to go onto the spring. And then what we do is take the loose end and feed that onto the X. So this is a common knot used for lashing. I learned this in Scouts. We actually built a human-fired catapult just lashing staffs together, large sticks. So just pull this snug, and there's our first knot. So the next one now is across the front here. So we'll go clove hitches across the spring, and then we'll get a different knot at the front. What I'm doing is making sure that I've got a straight line across the spring. I'm going to anchor it here. So I'll do a clove hitch here, here, and down here, and then we'll anchor it with a different knot. So now I can check my work. So I'll compress the springs down here, wrap it around here, and then see if I've got the right height here. It needs to go down a little bit more. So unwrap this, push it down a little harder, and then tighten that up. Okay, so that's looking good there. But unfortunately, this cone, this spring, is leaning forward. So I need to make this shorter here so that we've got a nice compression and that each of these springs are working perfectly up and down. So what I need to do is undo these two clove hitches here. I need to shorten this here, retie them, and then we'll check the work to make sure the spring is straight up and down. Okay, we'll try it again. Put tension on it. Wrap it around here. There, that looks much better. The knot here is the easiest of the three, so this is just what's called a half hitch. So I just need to make a loop, bring the end through the loop, and then snug it down. So that's one half hitch. We'll do that again. Two half hitches. And then we can set the nail down. I hope those knots were clear enough. Now the next step is to go through and tie the second set of springs front to back, and then I'll do it right to left, and then there'll be one more in the middle that holds everything together. Once I've done that, I can start working on the rest of the upholstery. So there you have it. The springs are now tied. These cross pieces here are just really strengthening, pulling down that center, and it's just an overhand knot that I used to tie them there. So we're now prepared. Different styles of chairs will have different number of springs. This particular one has 4. I've seen some with 5, some with 7, depends on the chair. So this isn't a blueprint for every single chair that you'll encounter. The next step here is to put some burlap on and some edge roll.
Do you have a repair project that you need help with? Book a coaching session with Scott and talk to him one-on-one to get advice based on your skill level and tools. Go to fixingfurniture.com to book your coaching session today.
So I'll just tuck these loose strings in here. And the burlap is going on here before we put the padding on and before we put the edge roll on. It'll start to shape the seat as I tighten it up here. And I'm using a staple gun with 3/8 inch staples. I started some staples at the front, and then I turn the chair around. And what I want to do is put some tension on the burlap, front to back. So I'll just tighten this down here and then put a few staples in. And then I'll turn it sideways. Put some tension across the side here just a little bit. And then I'll put some tension on the other side. And what I'll do is put a little bit of tension on this as I go all the way around. I'll put a few more staples in on each side of the ones I already have. And work my way around the chair until I get to the corners. The next step is to go through and put the edge roll on. This is foam, 3/4 of an inch, and it's got a stapling flange here. It's fairly easy to put on, and what it does is helps shape the seat at the edge here and prevents wear from that hard edge. The only tricky part of this is when you're working around a corner here. I'll show you how I do that. When I start at the back post here, I need to trim this on an angle. So I just eyeball it, cut it with scissors, and then we're ready to go. So I just line it up a little bit proud of this edge here as I staple it on. Now when you get to a corner, if you put a sudden bend in it, you'll end up with bunching, so it bulks up there. So the trick to doing this is to staple it almost to the end, and then put a nice gentle curve, and then pull the flange back here. So we get a softer curve. For the back of the chair, my pneumatic stapler can't fit in here, so I just use a simple spring-operated stapler to put the staples in. Now I've got some 1-inch high-density foam to put in here, but it's a little bit challenging to figure out what shape to cut it, so I've got a trick for that. I use newspaper. So I'll just take a flyer apart. We'll get one page line up the front here, and then start folding back the parts to copy the shape. So I've got masking tape here. I'm just going to use this to hold it in place, but also I'll break off pieces of the tape to help hold the parts that I folded back to get the shape that I need. So it takes just a few minutes, but once I've done this, I've got a perfect template for laying out how to cut the high density foam. Now all I need to do is put this on the foam and trace around it with a marker and cut it out with scissors. So the foam now fits inside the edge roll, and we've got some cushioning. So you might wonder why this layer. Well, the springs are offering some give. So when there's heavy weight, there's some give to it. You're not sitting on a flat board because you feel that. The foam here is offering a bit of cushioning. You can see as I put my finger in here, it makes it soft. And then what I'm going to do is spray some adhesive on here and adhere some cotton batting, and that will go on here and just smooth out all these areas and get it ready for the muslin that goes over top, and that tightens everything up, gets it ready so we can put the leather back on. Okay, the adhesive is dried for 5 minutes, so I can now put this together. And then I'll staple the edges down with staples and give it a nice tight pull. So that's all the padding. The next is the muslin. The purpose of the muslin is to make sure I've got a nice tight surface. So I'm going to be stretching this a fair bit as I go through. What I want to do is make sure I've got a surface that the leather can go on, and that when I put that on, I can just smooth it with my hand to stretch it, and I don't have any resistance. So muslin, you're never going to see it, but it's a really important step to putting upholstery together. Cut a piece here long enough to go front to back, and there's a fold in the middle, so I'm going to use that fold just to line up with the middle of the chair here. And what I'll do is put a couple staples in the front, stretch it, put a couple in the back, and then I'll move to the center of the sides, put a couple of staples on one side, stretch it, and get it tight. So I'll have it stretched this way. Once I've done that, then what I do is work out to the corners. So the purpose here really is to make sure we've got a tight, smooth surface to prepare it for that leather. Okay, and now we can put the leather seat back on. So this won't go on perfectly, but what I want to do is line up all the key points on it. And it might be too large. I don't think I'm going to have to stretch it, but I can feel at the back. We'll see. So what I want to do is get 2 points like this corner here, where I can put a tack in, this corner here, and start to figure out how it's going to fit. These are the French natural tacks I got from Kennedy Hardware. So what I'll do is see if I can get some location holes. So where I've got this piece of wood detail here, let's see if I can get this back. Yes, I can, into the old hole. So that's telling me I'm in the right spot. Let's see if I can do this on this one as well. Yep. Okay. So I'll keep moving along here. What I want to do is pick key points to see how this piece of leather is going to fit. So here's another defining detail here. If I line this up properly, that looks about right. I should be able to get a tack in that previous hole. Here's another spot. You can see how well the leather matches. So we get this lined up and see if we can get a tack in. So by using the previous holes, I'm able to align everything, but I may have to trim this if it's too loose. So down here, it's not quite meeting. So I've got this side and this side tacked in lightly. If I pull my hand across here, I can actually stretch this to meet the right location. Let's see if I can get a tack in here. No. In here? Yep. Okay, that one works. That one doesn't. Maybe this one here. No. There. So I've got tacks now around the perimeter, and it's nice and tight at the top, and this is how you check fabric. If you can pinch it, or you can make it wrinkle, it's too loose. So back here, we're fine, but on these front corners, I need to pull it tight. So that means what I'll do is stretch the leather further down below where the tack line is, tack them in, and then trim off the leather to fit, and that way we'll have a nice, smooth finish. I'll start in the center here. I can see a bit of a gap, and then I'll work my way to the sides. I started with the tack here, it was too high, so down here I put 2 more, so I can pull that out and hide that with the tack. So it's about half a tack width that I'm pulling this, but you can already see the difference here. That looks much better. So I've tightened up the left side here about half the width of a tack, and you can see the difference. Look how loose this is. This is nice and tight. So what I'll do now is cut the leather to match the profile of the wood, and I can finish putting those tacks in, and I'll tighten up this side as well. I still have to reattach the dust cover, but you can see now the spring upholstery is done. Repairing a chair like this is difficult because you have to take it all apart to repair it. Sticking in screws and nails just isn't effective. I hope seeing how a spring upholstered chair goes back together gives you some appreciation for the work that goes involved with this. This really is a premium upholstery product. It's nothing compared to just having plywood with some foam on top. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to watch another one, I'll leave a playlist here for you. Thank you for watching Fixing Furniture.